Danger.
Hello, everybody.
Hyper combo finish.
Hey, everyone. I finally voice trained, and that's the only thing that's changed around here. Please don't investigate any harder, I beg. So, it's been a minute. Sorry for just leaving you guys. I usually know it's time to upload when I get comments acting like I died. But hey, while we're talking about people who dropped heat and then vanished for a conspicuously large amount of time, Marvel vs. Capcom. So recently there's been a really large wave of creators concepting a potential new title in the series or making a new roster. And firstly, I want to say I had this idea for this video back in
2022.
But also, secondly, I respect the hustle. But I think these people are thinking too small. See, I think Marvel has been holding back Capcom for far too long. These are the guys who made them cut mutants in Infinite and also made them put in 2 Wolverines in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. So can they really be trusted with this franchise going into the future? I argue no. So what if we could have a game kind of like Marvel vs. Capcom, just without the Marvel part? Well, to do that, we would need another major comic publisher that would have a massive cast of iconic characters that would make great and unique fighting game characters. Well, DC and Dark Horse are unfortunately pretty clearly aligned with NetherRealms and WB Games, which is a fate I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. So what does that leave us? You already saw the title. Let's run it.
Don't give up. Challenge again.
Ready?
Alright, so consider this video my pitch as to what a Jump vs. Capcom would look like. I'm gonna be specifying Jump here, even though Shonen Jump is the more popularly known brand, just because it widens the search of who I can put in and who I can't. But just know that Jump is the broader publisher, and Shonen Jump is the magazine they make, if that makes sense. So, since this video will be a design document, I'm gonna go over gameplay stuff first, before I get into my flawlessly and perfectly designed roster. Firstly, I want to center the idea of aesthetically what I'm shooting for here. The core idea I want to get at with all the character picks I made is this idea of youth, the next generation. See, Shonen Jump is just that, largely centered around shonen material, around young people. Jump is so popular because it's so infectious and a key aspect of young people's lives within Japan. So with that, I think youth and the next generation will kind of be the centerpiece of a lot of my design ideas here. I also think this is a good idea just because it separates it so thoroughly from the original Marvel vs. Capcom games. Except for the one that was centered around being a new generation, but we can just ignore that one. Oh, also, I won't be going into this too much here, since generally I don't think I could make a visual example of what I'm talking about without making this video take 80 months. But I want to quick make a note of what I think the visuals should be shooting for. And honestly, there's only one core thing that I would consider a key visual aspect I would want from a game like this, and that would be, I would want the textures to reflect the texture you get from ink markers, as I think those are very indicative of the style of Shonen Jump color pages. Okay, with all that done, let's not waste any more time and jump straight in. Mechanics. Jump vs. Capcom will be a 6-button 3v3 tag fighting game. The 6 buttons are light, medium, heavy, special, assist 1, and assist 2. There are 3 universal macros in the game. Light and medium makes your character do a universal grounded grab, and heavy and special makes them do a splash. We'll come back to this later. You can also do heavy and assist 1 or assist 2 to make your opponent snap characters. All characters have unique health bars, but I'll mostly only be going over a character's unique amount of health if it's directly important to their game plan or gameplay. Double jumps and air dashes will be universalized. Every character will be able to do them. I will also say for the air dashes, I like to imagine that they'd be jumping off a manga panel to do an air dash. Kind of think like how the air dashes in Guilty Gear Strive, they jump off those little circles, but instead of that, it's like a manga panel. Also, the game has a recoverable health system, like almost every other tag game. As you can probably tell by the mechanics I've listed, I'm leaning a little closer to anime fighting game design than the more grounded Capcom style fighting game design, and that's very much intentional. I think it both fits the tone I want to set better, and also differentiates it from the rest of the series much clearer. Oh, before I forget, let's bring up Splash. Splash is the comeback mechanic for this pitch. Okay, whoa, oh my god, chill out, let me explain. Okay, so look, I'm very aware that comeback mechanic is a bit of a sore term for fighting game fans, especially for Marvel vs. Capcom fans. But I want to assure you that I designed this mechanic to be as tame as possible. All it is a special cancel, like a Roman cancel that you can perform that cancels out of your special and you can go back into doing normals or into another special. But you only get a use of it whenever a character goes down. So at most you get 2 uses of it per round. I think this is totally fair. It's a resource both players can access, as well as being mostly skill dependent. Sure, having that cancel is nice, but it's only as good as the mix-up you put it in. On top of Splash as a resource, each player can have up to 5 super meter and spend them on special moves. Every character in the game has a level 1 super and a level 3 super. You can chain team supers together by using DHCs. You know, the usual MVC stuff. Now, there is going to be a mechanic that is super unique to this game, and that's going to be instant kill supers. I know my Guilty Gear X art is showing, but hear me out. An instant kill super can only be done by expending 5 meters when both you and your opponent are down to 1 character. I think this is totally fair since, in all honesty, if you're in a game state where you're down to your last characters and you each have 5 meters, it was a one-touch game anyway. Each super is usually a kind of hit that goes into a special cinematic, where the winner gets a unique win screen, and that should cover the makeup for about all the core systems I want to talk about. So with these as context, I want to talk about perhaps the hardest part of making a Jump vs. Capcom game. The roster. So for the size of our roster, I'm going to use Dragon Ball FighterZ as my baseline for what a 3v3 fighting game licensed by Bandai Namco or Shueisha and Jump would feasibly be able to look like. As much as I'd like to say we could have the 32 characters of like Marvel vs. Capcom 3, unfortunately I just don't think that would be realistic for any game developer. So for now, we'll stick with 24 as a reasonable roster size. And with those 24, we're going to split them perfectly down the middle, 12 for Capcom and 12 for Shonen Jump. Before I make my NBA-style draft picks, I think it's important that we specify what my criteria for who made it in and who didn't was. Firstly, I'm going to start with the rules for every character on the list. Firstly is that uniqueness took precedent. If there was already someone on the roster who is too much like you, and I like them better, then unfortunately you gotta go. I only allowed myself 1 pick per franchise as to make sure to represent as many franchises as possible and to avoid a Jump Forces situation, where half my roster is just 1 franchise. Which, speaking of a bad roster, now, for the rules that only apply to Capcom characters. And fortunately, there's only 1 rule. No returning characters from a prior Marvel vs. Capcom game. My goal was to exclusively have new Capcom representatives. So from this point forward, only new guys. Except for 1 character, but we'll get there. Now, for the rules that only affect my Jump picks. Firstly, you must have been published within Shonen Jump, and you must be currently serialized, either there or in another magazine. I think it's a little unfair for it to just be stacked with like all the classics, and I think that creates a kind of boring roster. So this was my first rule. Next is that I'm going to give priority to mangas with no or low video game representation. If a character has already appeared in a competitive 2D fighting game, I hate to say it, but they've already had their time in the sun, and I want to give it to somebody else. Okay, with all the prerequisites out of the way, let's start building this roster. Yuji Itadori. Okay, I gotta start by coming clean and confessing that this video was originally supposed to be finished before JJK ended. So, I kinda got egg on my face on this one, guys. I'm sorry, I'm immediately breaking one of my own rules. Alright, now, this is gonna be a fun one to talk about. If I haven't made it clear enough on this channel, JJK is kind of my shit. So, I was really excited to have Yuji added here. Though I will save a lot of my thoughts on Yuji as a character for a potential other Jujutsu Kaisen video essay that may or may not be in the writing process, we'll see. I think Yuji is a super fun conversion to a fighting game character, and makes for a perfect representative for Jujutsu Kaisen, since he quite literally has every part of the Jujutsu Kaisen power system in him. He has 2 curse techniques, he's used curse tools, he has a hollow domain, a real domain, and a bunch of rad panels that can make cool reference material for normals. With that being said, he is very clearly a rushdown character. In the manga, he's constantly showed trying to take out the footing of his opponents, and that just so clearly makes for a mix-up character in my head. You could even have Todo off-screen using Boogie Woogie for side-swapping nonsense. You could also translate his Black Flash into a really unique timing gimmick. Something that really reinforces that in-the-flow combo state that fighting games are so good at portraying, but also is thematically relevant to the kind of in-the-zone trance state that Jujutsu Kaisen so frequently talks about. Also, his domain expansion was the whole reason why I thought an instant kill move for every character was a fun idea, since the idea of teleporting your opponent to your hometown for a heartfelt conversation as a finisher is such a funny idea in my head. Luke. For a first Capcom character repping his home franchise of Street Fighter is going to be Luke. When I first conceptualized this project, Luke was immediately an obvious pick. He's been hyped up as kind of the next generation style character for Street Fighter. For the second time, Street Fighter really likes doing that, huh? Street Fighter 6 and its marketing has been solely focused on him, so I think he makes a pretty quick and obvious pick for a new Street Fighter character. Or I could save us both the time and just say, he just plays like he does in Street Fighter 6, but harder. Monkey D. Luffy. Luffy is a rushdown zoner in my head, which is a bit of a weird archetype to have to break down, but the way I see it is a lot of Luffy's moves would launch his opponents and force them into weird long-range block strings. Honestly, out of all the characters I've picked, I think Luffy would be the hardest to convert into a single fighting game character, simply because he has too much to pick from. With his multiple transformations and nearly 100 named moves. I guess having nearly 1,200 chapters to your name will do that. Before I move on though, did you know that One Piece had a 3DS fighting game developed by Arc System Works? I'm not going to expand on that, I just think that's weird. Apollo Justice. Alright, next one is a pretty easy pick. See, in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, before the project, had its unfortunate end, it could be seen in the game's files that Apollo was actually planned to be implemented as DLC. But when the game had its ungraceful demise, Apollo unfortunately had to go as well. But fortunately, that gives me the chance to pontificate on what could have been. And hey, maybe with Apollo's track record, he might even be able to get himself another backstory just by appearing in another video game. Why do they keep doing this to him? Also, unfortunately, the answer to the question, how does Apollo play, is going to be a bit boring, but he would probably play quite a bit like Phoenix in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Same core mechanics of picking up evidence and using them as projectiles. You could even swap Maya for Trucy. However, the one thing I do want to add is I think that giving him long-range counters would be a great way to implement his style of attorneying. Is that a word? Where he waits to see his opponents flinch and reads their minds. So doing that through setting up counters that have him yell gotcha at ya would be a lot of fun. Taro Sakamoto. The stunning, overweight legend of a man, I think Sakamoto is the flawless mix of wholesome, goofy, and ludicrously cool that makes up a perfect fighting game character. I also think Sakamoto would work great as a build-up style grappler character. He would start as a slower character before using his install to turn into his skinny, more serious mode. He would struggle a bit in keeping up, but he would have defensive tools like his bulletproof glasses that deflect projectiles to help him get in, where he can use a wide variety of physical objects to assail his opponents. Also, I could totally see his intro being him imagining murdering the opponent and being swiftly chastised by Shin, who read his mind and saw the image. His windscreen could also be him doing something nice with his family, because if Sakamoto isn't doing something great as a husband and a father, it just doesn't feel right. Ash.
We've almost caught up to the Raider airship with the booty on it. I'm going to go ahead and meet our booty face to face.
Hey, yo!
So this one might be a bit of a surprise, but stick with me on my thinking here. I don't want to use Mega Man X or Zero because, well, they already had their time to shine in other Marvel vs. Capcom games. Tron is also already representing the Mega Man Legend games in the past. So in my mind, the only real options left were either a character from the Mega Man EXE games or a character from the Mega Man ZX games. And simply, I found the best representation in the ZX games with Ash. So let's real quick go over what makes her such a great candidate. Firstly, the reason I picked her over her male counterpart Gray is for two reasons. One, I think debatably, she's intended to be the canon version of the story. Secondly, I just want to close the gender gap in this game and try to have somewhat of an equal gender representation. So I'm trying my best to pick up girls wherever I can. Also, she's kinda representation for Axel, who is the only member of the X trio not to get to show up in one of these games. I didn't pick EXE or ZX or even the Zero games Zero because they were already too much like X and Zero. But luckily, Ash totally sidesteps all that. And on top of all of that, Mega Man ZX and ZX Advent are my favorite Mega Man games of all time. And I'm just kind of a slut for Tori Nakayama's artwork, so I just really want a character from them to make it, and Ash is my favorite, so it works with my biases as well. Aside from all those major factors is Ash's unique ability. Ash, paired up with her Biometal A, can transform into any machine they have the copy data of, thanks to her ability, A-Trans. Wow, Ash is just like me. A trans girl obsessed with booty. This ability lets her literally transform into every boss from Mega Man ZX and ZX Advent. Now, I'm not going to make these all installs because that would be insane, but I think this is a really fun way of getting to design a Zoner style character. All of her specials would have her transform into one of the many pseudoroids you defeat throughout ZX Advent, each having their own unique projectile and effect, while all her normals would be done in her base form. She could even have a special that copies her downed opponents, like Baby from Dragon Ball FighterZ. And if we really want to have some shits and giggles, we can even give her 12's best move from Third Strike. Taiyo Asano. Okay, so I'm gonna be honest here and say I only read Yozakura Family for this video, and I found it immensely, aggressively mid. But hey, I made my own rules here, and god damn it, I'm nothing if not a woman of principles. So this spot goes to all the Yozakura Family fans out there. Now, with that out of the way, I can tell you that I'm so pissed I did all that reading and research, because god damn it, he's just Kai Kisuke. All of his moves in this goddamn manga so clearly just transfer him to playing exactly like Kai Kisuke in a fighting game environment. Like, every part of his kit is here. It is crazy. Even the fucking install is here. At least it makes the entry here quick. He plays like Kai Kisuke. Ruby Hart. This is a fun and easy one. Next up is the first and only returning character, Ruby Hart. Now, out of all the characters that could return, why the hell did I pick Ruby Hart? Well, first off, I have a crush on her, but second, and most importantly, is that in my mind, she can perfectly cross the bridge between Shonen Jump and Marvel vs. Capcom. She's a classic character that hasn't had any love since the 2D era, and her pirate theme and aesthetics would make her a great match for Shonen Jump, whose marketing material and imagery is always surrounded by pirates. I could totally see her as the point of view character if this game had like a story mode. As for gameplay, she just plays like she did in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. It's a bit of a boring answer, but she can just play like her old self, that's fine. Akane Osaki. Yes, I finally get to shill for my second favorite Jump manga. Look, I'm totally aware I'm like one of 6 people who cares about this manga, but god damn it, do I fucking love Akane bonashi. And it hurts my heart that its AO3 tag is looking crazy anemic, when it's quite possibly the greatest piece of lesbian yaoi I've ever seen. And you might be saying, Zeta, isn't saying lesbian yaoi kind of an oxymoron? And to that I say, consult the chart, bitch. Also, I'll try my best not to gush too much here, since this manga, I could totally see myself talking about it again, or even giving it a dedicated video. So please let me know if that interests you. I'm looking for all my real Akane bonashi heads out there. With that aside, how do we make the main character of a manga centered around Rakugo, a performance art mostly known for sitting in one place, and turn her into a fighting game character? It's quite a conundrum, but after a bit of thinking, I think I've settled on an idea. Her intro is her coming out to perform an introductory Rakugo-style intro before taking off her Hiyori and starting her performance. She will be our first and only semi-puppet character. Akane has 2 modes, either when she's standing and she can do normals, but can't do specials, or when she's in performance mode and can do specials. Her normals are a mix of animations that communicate her chores and hard work as a Zenzai Rakugoka, but by hitting down special, she enters a performance mode, and by using special inputs, she can summon visions of her stories that come and attack the enemy player. And while these phantoms of the story are powerful, they leave her totally open for attack, since a good Rakugoka should always keep the crowd distracted with a story. It's very thematic. I like it quite a bit. Akira Kazame. I'm so genuinely surprised there's never been a rival schools character in Marvel vs. Capcom, but lo and behold, it hasn't happened yet. But hey, that gives me the chance to add Akira here. I also think she's a pretty easy conversion from her Street Fighter V appearance. I won't spend too much time describing how she plays here, but I will say her instant kill has to do something with her motorcycle. It's such a cool part of her character that gets underused. Kano Chinetatsu. Another underrated jump banger. Blue Box is probably an exceedingly weird pick for a Shonen Jump rep, but man, I'm just so crazy charmed by this story. Like, it actually got me invested in straight high schooler drama, and that's a Herculean miracle on its own end. So I just needed to include it in hopes that maybe one of you will check it out. So let's lock in and go over Kano. Since Kano is a member of the senior high basketball team, I think she pretty well converts into a more so heavy style zoner, focused on shooting basketballs as high priority projectiles that deal crazy damage, and her swift cross-up steps being tools to help her slip past her opponent in a close range scenario. Another easy one on the Capcom side is Lilith. I think she makes a very different impression from Morgan, while still easily fitting into the Morgan-shaped hole in the roster, all while still matching the game's overarching theme of youth and being the next generation. Also, I just think her super showtime makes for a great conversion into an instant kill move, since it's a great vehicle to get some really funny animation work out of the entire cast, and I'd love to see that. Hey, welcome to the midpoint of this video. We're officially halfway through the roster, and I think with that, I want to include something that I think would be a little fun, and that's stages. So here's a quick list of stages I think would work in this game. Shibuya. This is just the most immediately interesting and fun one you could pull from the Shonen Jump side, so it feels like a no-brainer. Maybe it could explode in the background, who knows. Metro City. And now it's also time for the most obvious pick from Capcom side. This place is defining in Street Fighter 6. The Thousand Sunny. Cliff Off. House Benevento. Look, now is as good a time as any to rip off the band-aid. Dimitrisu is not making it into the roster. Consider this sentence. I really failed all my tall lesbians. I frankly disrespected our cause. Penguin Village. It would feel almost sacrilegious to have this game with no love for the legendary Akira Toriyama. And I think Penguin Village is an overwhelmingly Akira Toriyama location. Blue Moon Tower. Originally, I was pulling pretty heavy to try and get a Dragon's Dogma character in, but I lost my mind trying to pick a character, so fuck it, y'all get the stage, enjoy. School Courtyard. This one might seem like a weird pick, but there's genuinely too many Shonen Jump mangas that take place in high school to just pick one high school. So just use this stage to go crazy. Hell, put all the high school characters here, and just randomize which ones are looking through the windows to watch the fight that's breaking out. Papu Beach. Look, I just wanted a beach, and this was the prettiest one, so I chose it. And there you have it.
9
stages that make up my stage select. Also, congrats on making it halfway through this video. I hope you're enjoying it so far. If you are, consider checking out our sponsor. Nah, I'm not gonna tell you to check out a sponsor. Honestly, just watching this far is already super helpful. So thank you. I will, however, take this time to shout out my supporters on Patreon for their incredible generosity and support. Also, I'm going to take a sec to remind you to drink some water. This video isn't super long, but still, you haven't drank water in a while. Nico Waki. Now this is an exceedingly odd pick, huh? Nico is a character that is exceedingly weak, and a lot of the core narrative surrounding her is trying to prevent any trouble from befalling her. You get it? Witch Watch? Her friends watch out for her. They're watching the witch. They're the Witch Watch. I think it's cute. So why her? Easy. I think she's able to represent a totally unique gameplay style. I want Nico to be a set-up trap zoner. Her gameplay would be centered around using spells to set traps, like turning the floor slippery or putting her opponent in a capsule, or turning them into sticky wall climbing toys. This manga is weird, it's too much to catch you up on. With her real power being in her specials, which call upon her friends to protect her and keep her from trouble. Kind of like a mix of Ginyu from Dragon Ball FighterZ and Gargos from Killer Instinct. Like, I even see her guard just being Moe standing there and taking hits for her. You could even have her use Witch Recovery as a self-sacrifice move that revives another ally. Ethan. So, remember how I said Lady Demetrisu didn't make it in? It's cause Ethan did. Honestly, as the core star of both Resident Evil 7 and 8, and being so strikingly different from every other Silent Hill character that's been in Marvel vs. Capcom so far, I think he's more than worthy. Something about Ethan's perpetual victim of the world lifestyle and rising to meet the odds personally makes him such a great pick as a character to represent a horror franchise in my mind, as he is quite literally the prototypical idea of a horror protagonist. Now, I'm going to be more closely basing his appearance and mechanics off of those from Resident Evil 7. I would imagine that he would keep his shadowy face and glowing red eye from the artwork from Ethan Must Die. So how does Ethan play? He's a heavy damage dealing zoner with a heavy focus on his collection of wild weaponry. His wide variety of grenades, pistols, shotguns, and even a couple of tools for getting in close, like the knife, crowbar, circular saw, and hand axe, would define his gameplay style of being a ridiculously high damage zoner. He also has the ability for higher damage attacks that have the risk of hitting him and dealing damage to himself, like summoning the molded creatures to come walk across the screen, kind of like Jill Valentine's zombies from Marvel vs. Capcom 2. He can also summon some of Lucas's traps, but he'd also have the threat of accidentally stepping on one. I think all of this is very reflective of his gameplay style, which is mostly centered around being opportunistic and careful. Andy. Speaking of horrifying creatures that are undead and continuously regenerate, Andy. Look, this is another manga I had to read for this video, and while I liked it more than I thought I would, I'm still gonna have to give it a decent 6 to a very light 7. But my own rules implore me to add Andy, so here we are. Andy will be our heavy rushdown character for this game, using his abilities to extend his limbs and grab targets for unconfident punishes. I could also see him using his blood propulsion and his unique blood projectiles as ways to extend his normals and make him an absolute screen hog. Think of him as like kind of a mix between Nagoriyuki and Sentinel. Lord Hideyoshi Toyomi. Another Capcom franchise I was actually kind of surprised didn't receive any representation until now. And also another great chance to have another big beefy boy in the cast. Also, luckily for me, Hideyoshi is a character that already just plays like a fighting game character. Like he's just a heavy grappler. Just transfer his moveset. Yuki Hojo. Now, this is actually a bit of a hard one. How do you make a character whose predominant character trait is running away into a fighting game character? Well, I think I've got a bit of a weird answer. Tokiyuki is a high-speed character based on rushdown. He is the fastest character in the game, having tools to get him in and out of the opponent's face, in front or behind them, and swarms them with high-speed attacks in the hopes of finding an opening. But with such great speed would come a horrible weakness. Tokiyuki would easily have the smallest health bar in the game, so he wouldn't be able to afford to be able to be hit. Thusly, he would have to rely on his retainers, his assists, to protect him and ensure his safety, both in his approaches and his mix-ups. Poison. Time for some final fight rep. And you know I had to rep my trans pride and have my favorite girl, Poison, join in, as she's never gotten to be a part of the fun for a Marvel vs. Capcom game. Unfortunately, I don't have much to add in terms of translating her here. I think her Street Fighter V appearance is already pretty good. Weird how that happened twice. You know. Surprise, it's not Asta. So you're probably wondering why I didn't pick Asta as a representative for his own series. Beyond the baseline reason of I do not care for him, very frankly, the spot on the list for a loud boy who has a sword and a demonic transformation and a white hair was already taken. But Yuno can fill a position that is uniquely his own. Well, unique for this game. He's Dr. Doom. Like, he'd be perfect to be Dr. Doom. He's got the flight thing, he's got the heavy normals, he's got the full screen projectiles, he's got the moves, he's Dr. Doom. The Monster Hunter. Okay, so this is a weird one based on my own rules I stated for the roster. I'm aware, but I can make this work. So look, here's what we'll do. Firstly, her visual design will be much closer to that of the cast of Monster Hunter Rise, rather than the more generic armor sets they used for Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. As for her moveset, I think it'd be kind of lame in defeating the spirit of the rule set just to say, hey, let's slap a new coat of paint on her and call it good enough. So I think there's a more fun direction we could take it in. I think the easiest way to do that is by giving her a similar moveset, but swapping out all the weapons for weapons that went unused in the Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite moveset. Her main weapon will be a hammer, not to say we won't give her a little sword. As a treat, she can pull out a sword and shield as a special move to enter a stance where she can block and counter the opponent's attack. And replacing her ranged option, instead of a bow and arrow, she'll use a heavy bow gun, which, once again, didn't make an appearance in Infinite. With all that being said, I think this is a character that has a distinctly different presence and probably game feel than the original Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite Monster Hunter. Denji. Ooh, time for a fun one. I think if he made it in, I would base him off of his Part 1 appearances, since he really hasn't done all that much in Part 2, that I would feel a heavy compulsion to add anything from there. Also because Part 1 is the section of the manga that was published in Shonen Jump, and thusly I think takes a bit more precedent here. Trust me, if I didn't have my own pesky rules and my own sense of who did and didn't belong, I probably would have picked Asa to be here, but that's how these things go. Denji is kind of an easy character to adapt. He's just a close range rushdown character. He leaps, he jumps, he gets in close, and he hits you with chainsaws, and that's kind of all there is to it. Ryu. Yeah, I bet you didn't expect Breath of Fire representation. To be completely honest here, there's no deeper reason for me choosing Breath of Fire for Ryu, beyond just thinking Breath of Fire 4 was the best in the series and debatably the most iconic, so why not give him the spot? As for the gameplay, Ryu is one of the only characters in the party in Breath of Fire 4 that can't learn spells just from level up, so I'm choosing to interpret that as him mostly being a rush-down character with the power to boost physical attacks with fire magic. So, he's Marvel vs. Capcom sole bad guy in my mind. Boom, there you go. Oh my god, he even has a literal dragon install. Ruri.
What did they do? Who the fuck is this? Who the fuck is Pingus? I never heard of fucking Lativia. You drafted this fucking kid! You stupid motherfuckers, you!
Speaking of dragon people, we have moved on to my last but most insane crack pick for the Shonen Jump side. And look, I'm super aware that this choice is probably raising some eyebrows and even has the chance to age like milk, so let me defend it for a second. Ruri Dragon has had record-breaking sales in Shonen Jump ever since it came out, and ever since then, the magazine has been exceedingly understanding and patient with its author, Masayoshi Shindao. I really think Ruri Dragon, with its incredibly calm writing style, funny dialogue, and charming characters, is one of the best things to ever come out of Shonen Jump. Because of that, I think she's earned a spot more than anyone else, even if the manga is only 18 chapters of mostly slice-of-life material. I'm placing my bets. I think this thing's going to go the distance and be important for this magazine. So, what does a normal girl with dragon horns play like? I think she's just a clumsy, close-quarters combatant that uses a wide variety of random access objects from her daily life to fight her opponent. Swinging Wii remotes, using bowling balls, smashing tennis rackets, and other random trinkets from her day-to-day. All this to set up her supers, which are her dragon-like traits, like summoning thunder or breathing fire. Nero. And for our last character, I know I had to pick an absolutely necessary addition. Devil May Cry characters have been consistently the most fun to play in every Marvel vs. Capcom game they've been in, so let's keep this tradition going with the newest and next generation of the Sparta family, Nero. Also, we're gonna be using his appearance in 5 because, like, duh, we gotta. Were you even asking? In my mind, Nero would have 2 central gimmicks. Firstly is Red Queen, a weapon that the player would need to keep rev using a special input and perfect timing. And second would be his Devil Breaker. You can use your equipped Devil Breaker as an addition to Nero's kit, and either freely discard them or intentionally break them for gameplay benefits. Also, he's gonna only have like 4 Devil Breakers, because I think more than that would perhaps make him far too complicated for a fighting game. The 4 I have in my mind are like Punchline, Gerbera, Overture, and Tomboy. I think all of this together would make him an absolute combo fiend that would live off of the same iconoclastic flair that made his deadbeat dad the coolest character in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. So there we have it. 24 characters,
9
stages, a set of mechanics. I would be lying to you if I said this video wasn't tremendously fun to make, but oh god, it has been a lot. Also, if you disagree with my roster, first off, you're wrong since I'm objectively a bigger fan than you, but secondly, I'm not surprised since I made some pretty intentionally outlandish picks, but I hope that you can at least see my reasoning behind them. Also, if this game actually existed, don't act like your fave wouldn't be able to be added later as DLC. Come on. And that's it. I just don't have any more for you. sometimes videos have conclusions, but sometimes they don't. There's no overarching point. There's no witty conclusion. That's just the end. But hey, since you're probably not even in this tab, let's finish off with some announcements. Firstly, I wanted to say thanks for being here. It's been a year since I uploaded, so it's nice to see you again if you came back. If you didn't come back, I'm sorry. Also, check out my partner's YouTube channel. They're super cool. I'm super proud of the work they're doing over there. They're making more so long form variety content. So if that's the type of thing that interests you, I would recommend checking it out. They're doing a lot of cool stuff over there. Also, you're probably going to see me around here a lot more often too. I'm uploading YouTube shorts and I'm planning on starting streaming here. So if that sounds like the type of thing that interests you, swing around. I'd love to see you. And that's everything. And how are you doing? Oh, you gotta go. The video's ending. Yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool. I didn't even...